The following video was made by tech students with the purpose of explaining the relationship between tobacco addiction and the consumption of other drugs. We will try to provide quantifiable and meaningful information gathered with the use of the scientific method in order to help prove or disprove this relationship. We believe that this can have a very large impact in a person's physical, social, and psychological life. Our research question is as follows. How can tobacco addiction lead to the consumption of other drugs? The two variables included in this question are these. First, we have the independent variable, which is the existence of tobacco consumption in a subject. The dependent variable is the consumption of other drugs led by this tobacco consumption. Our justification for this investigation is that very valuable information can be extracted with it, and therefore be used to have a positive impact in the diminishment of tobacco addiction, raising awareness in the users of this drug as well. As our research is based on mere theoretical investigation, no physical material is needed in order to gather information. However, we did elaborate and made use of surveys developed by ourselves. These helped us recover very helpful information to analyze the current situation regarding the relationship of cigarette smokers with other drugs. These surveys were applied to over 50 smokers in a period of 1 day. These smokers were mainly friends, acquaintances, and members of the tech community. The ethical implications of our investigations are positive, as we didn't use any materials such as chemicals or any other tangible compounds which could damage the environment. Further on, we did try to spread a positive message to surveyed smokers and made them question their decision for their habit. Now, going into a deeper and theoretical context, we would like to give a complete introduction to serve as a background of the situation. We must first recall that a drug is a chemical substance that affects the processes of the mind or body, as stated by the medical dictionary. Drug abuse or addiction is a chronic illness that causes a compulsive attitude towards the consumption of a drug. It is one of the largest social and medical concerns at the day and has become one of the leading causes of hospitalizations and deaths in the last decades. This illness is generally derived from the constant use of certain drug or substance, which over time develops into an addiction towards the effects of the drug. The brain of a drug addict is very different from a normal one, due to the unnatural flow of neurotransmitters, leading to the eventual death of thousands or millions of different types of cells. The effects of drug addiction lead to a large list of health and social issues, which can lead to irrational and violent behavior in a person, carrying on with potentially devastating consequences. Our focus in this research is trying to unmask any existing relationship between the seemingly lighter addiction of tobacco with a stronger one, such as one to illegal drugs. We will try to find some type of pattern or relationship in addictive behavior in humans between different types of arrangements of drugs. Tobacco addiction has been an important issue in human society, which can be traced back historically hundreds or even thousands of years. Nowadays, it is a problematic that is one of the leading causes of deaths worldwide, reducing a person's lifespan 15 years compared to a non-smoker. It also brings about many other problematics, such as several types of cancers, type 2 diabetes, infertility, among others. The mode of action of nicotine, tobacco's main component, is as follows. When the nicotine enters the bloodstream, it circulates around the body until it gets to the brain. Once there, it activates cholinergic receptors. These receptors are normally activated when they bind to acetylcholine at the brain endings in the brain and in the peripheral system. Nicotine and acetylcholine are very similar in structure, so nicotine can also activate the cholinergic receptors. Nicotine disrupts the normal functioning of the brain because it also stimulates the release of many neurotransmitters. It only takes 7 seconds for the nicotine to arrive to the brain. Furthermore, the effects of other stronger drugs can be very similar, varying in the kind and the intensity of its dependence, withdrawal, tolerance, reinforcement, and intoxication. These variables are very well exemplified in this graph. Our hypothesis for the investigation is as follows. Tobacco addiction is directly related with the increase in the probability a person has of consuming and developing an addiction to other drugs, due to the similar mechanisms through which a body develops drug dependence and can play a key factor in the involvement of a person with different, more damaging drugs. The methodology of our investigation is basically supported on investigation, theory, and data retrieval. The first step is the development of the surveys in order to gather quantifiable information. These surveys were then applied to over 50 young smokers. Then we analyzed the information gathered and compared it to the previous research. This will serve as the backbone to the conclusions driven out of this investigation. The results of our surveys are as follows. On question 1, how many cigarettes do you smoke per day? The most important information gathered is that nearly half of the 66 people surveyed are occasional smokers. A third of them said that they smoked a small amount every day, and the remaining 20% are heavy smokers. In question 2, at what age did you start smoking? Half of the responses were of people beginning smoking between the ages of 16 and 18. Another large portion began smoking between 13 and 15 years of age. In question 3, out of the 20 closest people to you, approximately how many have the habit of smoking? More than half responded that they have from 6 to 10 smokers in this group of people. In question 4, out of the 20 closest people to you, how many have or had frequently consumed another type of drug? Almost half stated a relatively low number. Still, a lot of people said that almost half were in relation with a drug. In question 5, in relationship to the previous question, specify the type of drug, an astonishing large amount of people selected the options for alcohol and marijuana, whereas only 3 people chose none. In question 6, have you consumed any type of drug besides tobacco? We could see that almost 90% of the smokers have consumed a different type of drug. In question 7, have you consumed any type of illegal drug? We could see that 71% of the smokers had consumed an illegal drug at some point in their lifetime. In question 8, if you replied yes in the previous question, specify the frequency of its consumption. 37% stated trying it once, 23% 2 or 3 times, 19% once a month, and 11% once or more times per week. After analyzing these results, we have come up with several interpretations. The fact that over 83% of smokers have at least 6 smokers within their closest group of people shows that there is an influence between the smoker and the development of its habit with close people, making it some sort of virus. Also, according to the data collected, over 90% of the smokers surveyed have consumed a different type of drug, and surprisingly, 7 out of 10 of these smokers have consumed or will consume an illegal drug, if we extrapolate our findings. The explanations for this fluctuate between human psychology and human biochemistry. The psychological implications of addictions rely on habits and a positive feedback from the mind. Once a person has developed the habit of smoking, it will become part of his or her daily routine. As a new experience that then becomes a habit can influence a person to try new experiences, as the former will not prove to be as spectacular as it was in the beginning, creating a vicious cycle. Regarding biochemistry, the chemical effects of a drug in the body are generally aimed for pleasurable sensations and a modified perception. If a person develops an addiction to the effects of nicotine, it will eventually develop dependence to the drug, up to the point that a person doesn't do it anymore for pleasure, but for necessity. Then the body can act in looking any type of similar effects in other drugs. In accordance to the new information and its analysis, our hypothesis could be confirmed. We were able to demonstrate how the addiction of tobacco is directly related with the increase in the probability a person has of consuming and or developing an addiction to other drugs. It can lead to the consumption of other drugs with the physical and psychological habitude, and therefore lead to a person's voluntary or involuntary seeking of another drug.